Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Align, where we help you align with your true self, others, and your desired outcome to live your best life. So I think a bunch of us have seen, especially those that stay really close to the investment world, that we've seen a lot of, IPOs, investment, a lot of news around Insurtech. And usually when we think about insurance, it's not the sexiest, space, a little bit old school, slower moving for obvious reasons, more conservative. But we've definitely seen, I would say, through since COVID, more of a hockey stick growth, so to speak, and people being more comfortable with specific companies going IPO, being more larger companies. So what better person to bring on than Mike Danov himself? Mike, so welcome to this topic and welcome to Align.
Thank you for having me, Jess. I appreciate it.
Of course. And so I think first would be helpful just to, talk a little bit about your background. Obviously you're in the family office space, your own specific family office. So it would be great, to hear, high level, what are some things that you guys do in terms of investments? And then why did you, why were you so gravitated towards Insurtech?
Sure. I'll give a little background on us. So, look, we're a single family office making investments in multiple industries from natural resource to healthcare, tech, consumer, and crypto. Predominantly 90% direct investments between publics and additional privates and then sort of PE cash flow businesses. When we get involved in an industry, we like to come in as operators first and experience it as a more institutional approach, get involved hands-on, and then obviously continue making investments within the space because we understand it. What gravitated me towards the insurance space, it was similar to my original background, which is in the lending space. When I started my early career out of college, spent quite a time, for, I would say about 4 years, around 2007 to almost 2010. It shows how the growth of the industry is going, right? About a year and a half ago, I was not really following the space as close besides trading the big names, but really starting understanding the overall market with the big buzz happening in the space with large companies going IPO, the traditionals like Lemonade, more in the PC space where everybody oversaw it. But I did not see of a big gap in the senior healthcare market where it is today. And when our family friends launched the company, they attracted me and explained me where those gaps are and why those gaps were important to get involved today and obviously involved in the space today.
Awesome. Super helpful. And, let's talk a little bit more because I don't think the audience is quite familiar with the kind of hockey stick growth in Insurtech. So talk to us, what has caused Insurtech to be so popular and we have so much news around it, especially after COVID. And then where do you see these trends going?
Sure. So as everybody knows, the traditional insurance way the business is done originated is through knock on doors or referral business. A lot of the agents we know or may have friends who are in the space, whether they work at groups like Prudential and MetLife. But the way the insurance space has transformed in COVID and is how do you figure out to make those sales by not going the traditional way? COVID was actually a benefit in our way where we got involved is that people still home and still people need policies and they needed to be active today. The transition of the business became more of a cold call approach, which it always existed, but it really tuned up to the next level where every policyholder or an existing one needed to be exposed to the opportunities in the space. So brokers had to figure out immediately how to transform that and the why to transform it and what was the best way to lock into those potential clients. So cold calling system picked up even more than usual. I think from a lot of the competitors overall in the space that we noticed, 80% is still of that business today, and I think it's going to grow. And digitalize what has happened in the space. How do we find the best rates? Today, you don't need to wait and sit for a broker to call you. You could go to specific websites. You could fill out your name and application, and then a broker will reach out to you. And during COVID, that was even a bigger factor because people really didn't have the avenues they would go. But that's kind of how the market shifted out of the traditional metropolitan city, because we have to think about we have 330 million population. Metropolitan cities or states have a different access than the tradition, but we have to look at the whole nationwide and how that's more valuable because a lot of customers still like the approach of seeing in person, but they had to adopt it to go over the phone instead.
Got it. Helpful. Yeah. And I obviously, on the Insurtech space, especially for, your company, Premium Choice, the tech is what that's the secret sauce, right? That's a specialty. And obviously we can talk very high level of the CRM system that you've built, but I think both you and I, and we just had a call earlier with a large investment bank, that CRM system, if it's built incorrectly, if it's built for a smaller size and you eventually have to rip it out and rebuild, it's huge headache. I think both you and I have our own nightmare experiences in finance when we're, using a system that is not fit and also a little bit too small scale for it. So would love to hear a little bit more about the CRM system, like the vision behind it. Was it built for a larger entity? And, I know eventually you want to convert the business into more of a SaaS model. So would love to hear, why the pivot, how it makes sense for Premium Choice specifically, and how do you think it's going to revolutionize and change the insurance space overall when you guys become SaaS?
Sure. When I started looking into the space in the beginning of last year, and just speaking to my friends in the lending space to understand what kind of platforms are they using from origination to make their, at that time, the loan officers to be effective and how to make this a product better for the company. Insurance is a Stone Age product, right? A lot of the large insurance companies did not have a systematic approach to their operation, right? It's still fill out application by pen or by forms or just basic information. There was no full integration tech space. There's probably one true competitor which got acquired by a large insurance space company that really was sold for their tech value. So when we had the in-house CRM, which was used for other operational businesses, I saw the gem. I said, this could be revolutionized once we could do additional tweaks and make the business. Now, by all means, if it wasn't for the tech and the product, we would not be able to scale the business as quick in the revenues and where we are, and especially during COVID. So the optimization of the product would really outline, onboarding process to make the agents' life easier when they fill out the application, getting the information, what kind of rates, what kind of condition the policyholder has. So everything was optimized for that, for make the agent's life easier, especially when they're making these inbound calls from home, which 99% of our agents, that's what they do today. So that was kind of the key component of the platform CRM. How do you revolutionize the space and make it more effective, lower the cost? A lot of insurance companies have a large overheads with call centers from marketers all the way to the agents. That's a huge burden on the monthly burn for any company. We realized that with a lower burn and a better optimization return on your time and effort from having a platform like that, that's going to be the key. And if I could help the industry, other insurance brokers who are doing similar revenues or really want to grow the business but not figure out how to do it, because the industry is still run by mom and pop mentality approach. Very few have institutional mentality to grow these businesses. And once because they're cash flow revenue businesses and they become cash flow positive, they essentially don't see that they like it as a main course of a business for themselves and not really thinking how to grow it and optimize it to better. So I think with our platform, we will provide that resource. We'll open those eyes and ears for a lot of other brokers who need it or other agencies who need the product and really could scale it and cut costs and make more profits for the firm and for the founders and whoever's running the operation. And I think that's going to be a key component for us to help us grow the company to that stage, to prove that this is the optimum. Because by the end of the day, Premium Choice is the first proof of concept of using the product and how effective it got our CRM.
Right. Yeah, I think you touch upon it too. And the way you even think is going from, how do we take this company, Premium Choice, and kind of scale it bigger through a SaaS model? So for you, you personally have experience outside of Premium Choice to transform a lot of private companies into public. So talk to us about, and I'm sure hearing about the way you think about the Insurtech space can be applied to other industries as well. So talk to us in terms of an entrepreneur or a private company that eventually wants to go public, what are some of the steps that you see? What are some of the roadblocks that you see people kind of get trapped into? What advice would you give a lot of these entrepreneurs? And we definitely saw last year a lot of tech stars, right, cashed out, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more this year. So what are some of the thoughts or feedback you have for entrepreneurs?
Sure. So a lot of the entrepreneurs, when they start these businesses, the ideas are great, the execution is excellent. But the question is, how is the business going to look like in 3 years now, right, from now on? Unfortunately, the way the industry is run today, from private to public, from the investors that they receive capital is to show about growth versus actually showing how this could be a cash flow positive business in the future. Because once you go public, from private public, this is where it gets tricky. Now, the investor type you have today you're gonna get penalized if you miss your quarterly earnings or expectation or growth. So the biggest disadvantage that I've seen in the last, since being an entrepreneur myself the last 10 years, is getting that way to grow the business and diversify into that opportunity and become that profitable company. I think from a lot of the entrepreneurs, they just don't see that yet. And to be honest, as an investor myself, when I ask these questions, how do you look at your revenues? What do you see the growth perspective? And they get stuck on the different numbers versus when they should be focusing on execution and actually showing profitability to the business. And then as the time goes on, they lose that momentum on when they're public companies. And we actually have seen that recently in our industry. Most of the companies that went public, all the top 6, including, the P&C companies, not just the senior healthcare, but all lost more than 60% of its value post-IP because they're not cash flow positive companies or not showing to the growth profitability. And eventually investors will change management, or management will leave most likely because they're not performing, and that's the problem. So number one, for any entrepreneur, you're building a company, that's great, but show us a path that you're going to be a profitable company or have an idea. And if you don't know it, bring the experts and the team members that could help you build that, whether it's a valid investor, advisor, or any other senior team member that could show you that path to it. 2 is really executing on that. If you believe in this is going to be a growth story and you believe that this is going to generate income, because by the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, you own ownership. You hopefully have sweat and income in the company, and then you could really monetize that for yourself in the end. So hold on as much as equity as you can, because by the end of the day, this is going to be a future distributions once you become cash flow positive. And 3, if you don't know how to get there to the cash flow, step down. It's not a big deal. We've seen C-level step down, play a different role in the company, be the creative designer or director or whatever you feel, be an operator if you're good with managing people, and bring an experienced CEO, bring a senior team member that's going to show you what to get there, because you really have a good 2-3 year window to show that. And if you can't figure out after a year and a half, I recommend strongly to step down to different roles. Somebody could help you out, because by the end of the day, you're building as a team. That's all that matters.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I'm sure the picking process for the C-suite is also so sensitive, right? Because essentially a company for a founder is your baby, and you're essentially bringing on a babysitter, right? To come on board, even more, I would say more intensive babysitter, like a new mom or new dad, right, take over. So hear you on that. Well, Mike, super helpful. I think it was definitely eye-opening for people that don't really know about Insurtech space and how much we've kind of grown, especially through COVID. I always wrap up with a question, and that is, I feel that every person has a unique gift. So what do you think, Mike, is your unique gift?
Transparency and helping people out. That's my kind of been unique gift, and I always believe in giving back. So that's what I've done for my career, and I continue planning to do that.
Yeah, and I have to say, hey, I've known you for a while now. That is your gift, and I feel like you're also good at being transparent without being, too blunt, right? But you're also not like sugarcoating anything. You're just purely honest. This is what it is, and yes, you're definitely a huge giver, like a giving tree. So thank you for the time.
Thank you.
That was awesome. And I will see you soon, dear.
Thank you, Jess. Have a good one.
Bye, Mike.